I mean, I think that is the one thing we take for granted with signatures is that they're completely customized, one of ones. Patrick Ryan here, better known as the P. Ryan Collection on Instagram. From a collecting standpoint, I do have a pretty broad collection, ranging from dollar cards all the way up to multi-million-dollar game used jerseys and a lot of things in between. Over the last couple of years, one of my big focus has been on signed cards. One of the reasons I have such a passion for signed cards is that as a kid, as an autograph chaser, going to stadiums and team hotels, it was sort of blasphemous to get rookie cards signed or high-end cards signed because that would be considered defacing it in some ways. And so in this kind of next iteration of my collecting journey, got really back into it in 2017. The focus has been kind of rekindling that passion for autographs and cards that were sort of the forbidden fruit of my first journey as an autograph collector. And so very happy to be sharing some of those items with alt and collectors across the globe.
Do you remember as a kid some of those players or teams that you're always hunting down, trying to get those autographs on cards?
So what's nice is I grew up within just a couple miles of the Houston Galleria, which is our main mall. And at one point, it was the largest mall in the entire world. And so the teams would stay at one of the two hotels near there. And so it was kind of great for autograph collecting as we'd hang out, get Chick-fil-A, and we sort of knew when the teams would leave and get on the team bus. And, many players were pretty friendly. I was mainly focused on getting 8x10 photos signed. And so it wasn't really a ton of cards. And that's probably one of my biggest regrets is because back then, signed photos had a lot more value than signed cards. It was just sort of like an afterthought to get cards signed. Either it was people that were like trying to complete a set or they were trying to get a card signed from a specific player for every year. It was more of like a kind of a niche sort of part of the autograph, part of the autograph world. As my collection has grown, cards are very nice because they're stored in binders or they can be stored in, PSA cases or top loaders. And so I like the flexibility of having signed cards. Today, most of my signed cards do reside in PSA slabs.
When you're bringing the cards to those athletes to get signed, what criteria do you kind of use to determine what card you're going to bring or what type of memorabilia? So
I think that in terms of picking an item to get signed, it can have a lot to do with the situation in which you're going to get the autograph. So, for example, if you're going to, chase Luka Doncic and go to an NBA game early because he signs before games, I think you want to be comfortable getting something signed that might not turn out great because the person's walking and signing in a rush. So have realistic expectations around a situation where it's a free autograph in a crowd. Whereas, like, if you go to a signing at the National where there's tons of people signing, it's not exactly like a private meet and greet, but it's also not the same as a crowded free signing. So I do think that if you have something special or something unique, you can actually create some personal engagement with that particular athlete. I'm a big collector of signed vintage posters, and they generally will stop the players in their tracks. Like, for example, there's a Barry Sanders Lion King Nike poster where he posed on top of a live lion. And actually, during the signing, he stopped it and called his sons over to talk to them about this poster because it was a huge deal. Like, his agent, got yelled at by the team because they didn't know it was a real lion. And so that creates a unique opportunity. And that he did slow down at a public signing just because he was so impressed by the item. For cards, I think about cards that I really enjoyed as a kid. So by default, it's a lot of rookie cards, but also a lot of insert cards. So I think of the 1991 score set. They have these cartoonish cards they've got, I think, the Dream Team, and then these black and whites called the Franchise, and they look just great signed. And so a lot of times it's about what looks cool signed and what also I've got a personal connection to from when I was growing up as a collector.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about all the different colors of the pens, the Sharpies too? Do you have a favorite one?
Well, I definitely think that in terms of picking an ink color for any item, but particularly cards, it's a matter of personal preference. And I will say that the blue Sharpie is by far and away the best pen for signing cards. There are some set collectors and card collectors who, even if the card is very dark and the blue ink doesn't really show up well, they still want it in blue ink for the sake of the consistency of their set. And I respect that. I also like, in terms of preparing your item for signing for a card, I definitely think you need to prepare the card. I think rubbing your hand or finger, or even some people use baby powder across the card surface and kind of rubbing it down and kind of taking that gloss off. Even if the card doesn't seem to have gloss, it's kind of better safe than sorry to kind of rub down the surface of the card to prep it. And then with the Sharpie, if you sign your own name on a magazine cover or an envelope, using that pen 10 to 20 times gets it into a pretty good soft place. Where that blue Sharpie, like it doesn't streak when the Sharpie's broken in and it's on the proper surface of a card. So it's very consistent. It's very easy, and get a blue Sharpie in convenience stores. So I totally understand why the blue Sharpie is dominant and will be for probably for as long as autographs are a thing. In terms of these different paint colors, I mean, I do think that there's times like the 1991 Nolan Ryan Stadium Club where he's in a tuxedo. That card looks best in a bright blue deco paint pen. And what I like about that bright blue is that actually there's some bright blue in the Stadium Club logo. So it kind of actually works for that card. There are times though where I feel like, on like a 1975 Topps card, the paint pen might be a bit much, meaning like there weren't paint pens in 1975. There really weren't paint pens in 1991, but the design of the 1991 card lends itself to the light blue paint pen, whereas perhaps that 1975 card, it might just look out of place. So I do think that, like, yes, these paint pens can have the most pop to them, but sometimes they can look a little, awkward because they're not the right period of ink. But again, it comes down to personal preference, and I think that that's kind of the other thing that makes these exciting. I'm friends with guys who do signings, and like, one of the things about sending into a Ryan Fitterman or Matt Powers is like they will absolutely do their best to get you the pen color you want. And we definitely see some very like not logical colors chosen, but that's what that person wants. And like, I think that that's cool. Like, that's great. Like that there's some uniqueness to that person's collection.
When you're going to get those cards, are you buying them already signed? Are you going to meet the athlete like at an autograph signing? Do you have a favorite way to do that? Do you always like meeting the athlete, or is it easier to get them on the secondary market cheaper that way? What do you think?
It's funny. It's definitely been a mix, and it definitely changes over the years. I would say I recently acquired a Wayne Gretzky signed rookie, and, he has not done a public signing or a private signing where you could send in an item in quite some time. So for a guy like that, that's the only option. Or a guy, no longer with us, Jim Brown. I mean, that's going to be really your only option to buy it signed on the open market. I do oftentimes send into private signings, and generally what I'm thinking, I kind of look at it from a couple lenses. The first lens is if I'm interested in getting this item signed, there's a chance there's another collector interested in getting the item signed. So immediately, I very rarely send one item into a signing to get done for two reasons. One, I'm thinking that there could be a market for someone else who maybe didn't catch the signing or doesn't, participate in private signings or is a little confused about how it all works. Then also, by sending in multiple items, it improves the chances of getting a good autograph. I mean, I think that is the one thing we take for granted with the signatures is that they're completely customized, one of ones. Okay. So even though Wade Boggs has probably signed 2,000 of his 1983 Topps, and I'm not even sure what the pop report on that is, each one is distinct. It's an autograph. A lot of these guys' signatures are very consistent, but it is still, in my opinion, a one of one. And so there can be sometimes like a streaky pen or sloppiness with the autograph. And so if I'm sending in one item, if I'm sending in like one specific card, like a 1991 score Master Blaster Glenn Davis, if I'm sending one to a private signing, I'm probably sending four. And so that's really been my main strategy. And that's quite frankly is why I tend to have these extras available for sale. Sometimes I'm purposely thinking that there might be a market for something that I like, another collector my age or my genre might have interest in, but also like I have multiples because I just want to make sure I get one that looks really good for my personal collection.
You sent in so many cool pieces to consign with us over the next few auctions. Why did you decide to sell these ones with Alt?
So one of the reasons I chose Alt for this particular selection of cards, these aftermarket signed cards, is I do think that Alt is growing as a platform. And I think that diversifying its offerings is great for collectors, great for sellers, and great for buyers. And so I felt that there hadn't been a big focus yet on these aftermarket cards. And I felt that it was a good opportunity for Alt to kind of get into that space. And so I was very appreciative of the opportunity to present these to Alt to sell. And look, one of the things that's great about auctions, and I try to tell this to everybody who's selling and who's buying, is like, look, there's times auctions overperform my expectation. There's times they underperform. But overall, if I look at them as an aggregate, I'm generally very happy with the results. So one of the reasons I chose alt for this is that this is a new product category to a growing platform. So I think that some of the cards will do great and probably have, better performance than I expect. And there might be some cards that slip through the cracks. And you know what? I'm okay with that. If someone saves 25, 50, $100 on a card, like that just helps their collection. So I don't get bitterness about things not performing up to standard. So like, I'm really excited about people who have been loyal to alt seeing cards that they haven't seen before. Likewise, I'm excited to get some people who might not be familiar with alt seeing, who might be drawn to alt because of this segment of cards. So I think it was just a good timing. And very excited to be part of this opportunity.
No, we appreciate that. Patrick, just want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, all your insight on the hobby. I think we could chat all day and ask you a lot more questions, but we'll be back soon talking with you a little bit more, digging into what you like and a little bit more about your collection as well. But just want to say thank you very much and appreciate all your time.
You guys are very welcome. I appreciate the alt team. I appreciate all you guys are doing to expand the hobby, expand my collection, and look forward to future conversations.